Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Beyond the Breach, where we look at past cyber incidents and we focus on what becomes clear only once the headlines fade. Today we're going to be talking about Jaguar Land Rover and more broadly the manufacturing sector. This story isn't really about ransomware or any specific viruses. It isn't really about Jaguar Land Rover specifically, but it is about something bigger and, in my opinion, more dangerous in manufacturing. In that sector, there is one architectural mistake that I've seen on a regular basis that turns incidents into crises. And that is the creation of invisible bridges that tend to exist over time between corporate IT and operational systems, sometimes referred to as OT. Not physical bridges, network diagrams, I mean systems that quietly and over time start to connect IT and OT. Things like identity and access management, things like scheduling, logistics, and increasingly cloud services. Over the years, these bridges are built for efficiency, and they work brilliantly right up until the point where they don't. Because when an attacker finds their way into corporate IT, those bridges become a target and they can turn into pathways for the criminal. And suddenly a cyber incident becomes an operational shutdown. Based on public reporting, Jaguar Land Rover detected a cyber incident in late summer 2025. It affected internal IT systems supporting manufacturing and logistics. As a precaution, they isolated affected systems and they halted production actually across multiple UK plants. That disruption lasted for weeks, it made the headlines and had a very meaningful operational and financial impact. Later reporting indicated that the employee payroll data was also accessed by the criminals, extending the event beyond disruption into personal data exposure and potential regulatory consequences. Now, Jaguar Land Rover has not published a detailed technical root cause analysis here, and I'm not going to speculate about attackers or tools or specific vulnerabilities. But I think we can talk responsibly about a pattern that I've noticed in manufacturing because it shows up repeatedly across large industrial organisations. Incidents of this scale almost never originate on factory floors. They begin in corporate IT, the IT that most of us know. They begin in identity systems, remote access services, collaboration platforms, and of course, in cloud. They create huge opportunity for the criminal for initial compromise. Across similar incidents, the most common entry paths in manufacturing attacks are actually the very same entry paths that we witness in other sectors. We all know what they are: compromised credentials, abuse of trusted supplier access, weakness in identity and access management controls that span multiple environments. And here's the critical point, I think. Attackers don't go in loud immediately, they go in quiet. They explore, they move laterally across the organisation, and they position themselves. What are they looking for in industrial and manufacturing organisation? Well, they're looking for our bridges, the connective tissues that exist between corporate IT and operational technology. Because if they can compromise that connective tissue, those connective systems, or even create uncertainty around them, the organisation is forced into a brutal decision-making process. At that moment, leaders face a stark choice. Do we keep operating while trust is uncertain, or do we stop decisively before this spills into something that could potentially be safety critical or completely uncontrollable? In most industrial environments, the right answer is painful, but it's really, really clear. You sacrifice availability to preserve integrity and safety. So if production stopped, that doesn't mean a failure in response, but it does mean something deeper, in my view. It means that trust was lost across systems that were never designed to be separated cleanly under the sort of pressure that a cyber attack brings. That's the real lesson here. Manufacturers like Jaguar Land Rover are exposed because modern enterprise design continues to converge. Identity often spans all of it. creating a single plane of trust. So once identity is compromised, everything is compromised, at least in principle. And when trust breaks, you can't just restore from backup and carry on. You first have to answer some pretty searching questions. Are we restoring clean systems? Are we restoring safe access to those systems? Are we restoring the very same compromised credentials that the criminal used in the first place? And can we prove all of that? This is where many organisations discover the hard truth once they've been breached. They have recovery plans for systems and applications and data, but not recovery plans that recover trust. There's also a second order effect that rarely makes the headlines. In a crisis, sensible emergency procedures are applied, things like lockdown policy, access restriction, maybe the disabling of automation. Here's the problem. These controls often remain long after the incident. What were temporary security controls become permanent friction for the organisation. And 3 months later, leaders are looking around and saying things like, why is everything so slow around here? Why is it so much harder for us to do things? And it's because the organisation survived the crisis, but didn't unwind the emergency procedure. Recovery discipline matters as much as response. This is the moment where cyber resilience stops being a security or a backup topic and becomes what it always should have been, a board-level business capability. That's the clarity I wanted to cover today. Beyond the breach.